in 2015 in January, we kind of really are seeing the stark reality of racial disparity in this industry that we're now, all of us on the KSB team are now a part of. When managing editor of Broadway Black, an organization that celebrates the work of Black theater artists, April Rain tweeted out, #Oscars so white, they asked to touch my hair. And I don't know if y'all know this, but probably everyone on KSB team is like scoffing at this point because it's laughable of how frustrating it is almost. And again, it was like that night in America where we watched all 20 acting nominations in the Academy Awards that went to white actors. And you kind of ask, how does this happen, right? Like, how does this happen when we know that it's not that only white individuals are acting or producing or screenwriting? There really is the diversity that is in this entire industry, but why is it only the white individuals that are getting credit consistently and being highlighted by the media and taking on a lot of these roles? And this was something that was talked about for several weeks post the Academy Awards. But again, it's something that still something that we're working towards. So currently, we see the Academy of Motion Pictures and Art and Sciences, who are the group that votes for the Oscar winners. They've doubled their people of color. So prior it was 8%, and now it's moved to 16%, right? So 8%, it's a good jump, and 16%, we still understand that that's relatively low. And then also for female members, we went from 25 to 32%. But again, we go back to that same concept of knowing that that's still 68% male and 84% white, which is truly jarring if you're thinking about it, because we have a lot of companies, corporates have diversity and inclusion task force, and that what does that really mean at the end of the day? But they did hire the first female president and CEO of the Recording Academy, which is an organization that is presiding over the Grammys. But again, this does not change the fact that no Black artist has won Album of the Year since 2008, usually being, routinely boxed in traditionally, quote unquote Black categories such as like urban, hip hop, rap, R&B, and that way of just saying, oh, you did good work, but good work for that group. And it definitely is something that's boxed and limited. But Hope, what are some other things that we can be thinking about as we're talking about, the Academy Awards being gatekept by white people in such a weird way when it's always actually the content is being stolen by POC, specifically BIPOC individuals?
Yeah, Lena, no, I agree. And I feel like diversity inclusion, that tagline specifically, has been used over and over again by these same institutions, and we are seeing no change. And I am tired of seeing this term being used by colleges and by all these other institutions, and they are just masking that by not doing anything about it, not actually caring for BIPOC individuals. But even if we take a step further back, away from podcasts and movies and music and media as a whole, it's often a sea of more of the same. The same overrepresentation of white cis male doctors, lawyers, engineers, law enforcement supervisors, writers and authors, high school teachers, and the list goes on. That's not to say strides aren't being made at all. After all, a majority of medical students now identify as women. Near October 2019, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported the lowest unemployment rate for white, Black, and Latinx populations since the 1960s. And a Black and Asian woman is running for VP on the Democratic ticket. Perhaps most potently, we can feel a shift towards stronger attempts at openness, viewpoint, and acceptance, even or especially within our own marginalized communities. But the work is very, very far from done. Actually, what does this information really even say? These statistics do not tell us how Black and Latina trans women are coping with the 28th trans murder of this year. They don't tell us how the data on affirmative action in the Asian American community plays into admissions from the many Asian ethnic minority groups, at least not until we come into this conversation with the numbers themselves and bring this experience to the table. At a more essential level, what does this mean for me and you and all of us? What does it mean for our communities to have more lights shining on where we're always left in the dark?
Yeah, I would just like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the passing of Chadwick Boseman. He was an icon not only in the Black community, but also for anyone who is a fan of the Marvel movies. He's incredibly special to me and so many other Black kids who saw him and saw a hero, and more importantly, saw themselves and felt like they finally had someone in a film that looked like them. His death, unfortunately, is only the latest tragedy that we've seen. We finished the script only days after Jacob Black was shot 7 times in the back by police, even though he posed no threat to anyone and was simply ending a conflict between 2 women. In a time where Black men, women, and children are constantly being threatened by police, and POC are still harmed disproportionately by this cruel pandemic, we have a man who loves the sound of his own voice, and he has his second night on stage at the Republican National Convention as many of us look on through a mix of negative emotions. Despite these tragic events and all of the confusion and probably nervousness that we're all experiencing right now, KSB does plan on bridging the gap between minority experiences. You know, we all come from different backgrounds. We all have these different intersectionalities. With these current events that keep happening, each of us feels them differently. We all want to bring a mic to the nuanced experiences of the unrepresented, which is why we have our next segment, the Brown Breakdown.
It's the Brown Breakdown.
Thank y'all so much for that piping hot KST, and thank you, Chase, for bringing up Chadwick Boseman. That's something that we're going to be talking about more throughout, but also something that is really real, and what we'll be kind of addressing this entire podcast is talking about what's happening right now in our community and being upfront with that. And that's part of you also being part of the KSFam, is reaching out to us, reaching out to John with social media and seeing what's happening with us in our community, with our listeners, because that's also really important as we talk about events that are happening, because current events are within our own lives and also our greater communities. But I want to continue on as we start the Brown Breakdown. This is a segment that will probably be one of my favorites, because you'll be hearing a lot of discussion during this specific section. You're going to hear from all of our members from the KSB team. We're going to be talking about basically everything that is the main theme of this episode. So now we're just going to get started. It's really casual. We encourage the KS fam to tell us their thoughts. We're going to be reaching out to y'all before, so we hope y'all engage with us. But something that I'd love to hear is, what about Dinah, when we're talking about all the things that we just talked about in terms of like the stats and the history and where KSB is at, just what are some of your thoughts right now going into this new season of KSB?
Yeah, honestly, I'm very, very much excited. When Lena first reached out to me and told me about KSB, I was like, this was the thing I was looking for. I feel like last year I was definitely struggling to find a place where I could learn more about myself and be in a space where I could, connect with other students interested in the same things that I was interested in. And more than that, especially after coming home, after getting kicked off campus because of the coronavirus, after, all of the movements that were taking place worldwide, Black Lives Matter, I just had so much going on in my head, and I had no real way of, voicing everything that was happening, of voicing, the fact that I just felt so completely drained. And, with this project, with this podcast, I'm really excited to have a space where I can share some of the thoughts that have been going on in my head, as well as being able to connect to you all and, this wider community, so we can really build this space for each other where we get to inform one another, but also, build each other up.
Yeah, Dinah. I'm so happy you're part of the team, because I know that not only are you someone, I think it's funny because we always talk about this on our team specifically, is that we kind of all knew each other before even, stepping foot on this podcast as one united team. And I think that that's product of going to Chicago, to the PWI, and they give us a lot of resources, but you always find community. And I think that these were individuals that we found because we wanted that community in a space where that kind of lacked at times. But John, how are you feeling in terms of starting KSB, maybe some like your personal experiences? I know we talked about you being able to kind of claim your identity in its full light, but how has that been when we're talking about representation in the media and even representation in like our lives in general?
Yeah. No, I really wanted to join KSB. I was really excited to join KSB because I wanted to let my younger self, if I could go back to my younger self and let him know that he had a seat at the table, I would do that. But he didn't know that because he wasn't really represented in media much at all. And I think representation is so important, especially with all the events going on now. But again, and I was hitting at this previously when I was introducing myself, but my identities were always kind of treated as these mutually exclusive events. Characters in TV shows and in movies, they were either Black or they were gay, not both. So when I saw these characters on screen, there was still this slight disconnect for me. You know, they might be gay, but I don't relate to the two middle-aged white men on Modern Family. It's just not something I could connect with. And I think it's essential, especially when you're young and developing your sense of self, to see yourself on screen, to see yourself represented, because it really validates you. It lets you know that there is a space for you in this world. And I wasn't able to come to that conclusion as easily as others who have always seen themselves represented and have always been validated and have always known they had a space. And like Hope said, this isn't exclusive to media. It's also important in spaces concerning healthcare, education, politics. When I was young, I can remember having this poster of all these US presidents in my room. And it was pre-2008, so it stopped at George Bush. And I remember trying to figure out if I could be president or not. And I was like 5 or 6, so I didn't know like the actual requirements. I didn't know you had to be 36 or a natural born citizen. So I went off what I saw. And what I saw were these 43 white men. And what I immediately thought was, oh, I'm Black. I must not be able to be president. It really put limitations on what I thought I'd be able to do and become. And of course, Obama came along and he changed all that for me. King, I know you're not listening to this right now, but we miss you. Please come back. Hope you're doing well. Say hi to Michelle for me and the rest of KSB. But yeah, just imagine how many other POC and women too probably looked at a poster in class and felt that way. And I really want to touch upon this. Like she said, Chadwick Boseman passed away last night as of the recording of this episode. Rest in peace, he will be and is greatly missed by many. I can say he did so much in helping Black children develop a positive sense of self, because we talk a lot about representation, but I feel like we don't talk enough about good representation and what that looks like and what that means. And especially with everything going on in the world right now, Black youth shouldn't turn on the TV and just see themselves as objects of murder on the news, or the butt of jokes in a movie, or a token side character that's only worth 10 minutes of screen time, you know? And with the advent of Black Panther, you had seen all these Black people in roles they were never in before. And I can only imagine what doors Chadwick opened and how many mental limitations he dismantled for young Black youth in regards to what they were allowed to be. Because now you could be a superhero. And once you're a superhero, you could practically be anything. So thanks to Chadwick for that. Again, rest in peace. We will miss him very much.
Yeah, the entire conversation about representation with Black Panther was so important, especially in my family. I don't know what everyone else's conversation was after that movie, but my family, my little brother, older sister, and both of my parents went to see that movie together. And we came out of that theater and the energy in the room was just amazing. Like, I specifically remember driving home in our car and talking about General Okoye. Just having the same namesake made me feel really, really proud of where I'm from in a way that American media has never really given me the opportunity to be. And then I was thinking back to other forms of representation, few and far between, but existing to an extent, thinking about the Proud family and I wanted to be Penny Proud. Like, I have a Penny Proud costume that I used to wear. I really just loved everything that she was about. Seeing myself reflected in an intelligent, driven, young Black woman, that's not something that you get every day or in every media setting, every channel. You really don't get that. So I definitely feel you, John. And again, with the Obamas as well, getting to see a Black family in the White House. Does that mean that I can be in the White House? Yes, of course it does. I mean, maybe not me, but someone like me. So something else I kind of wanted to shift gears to is, when did everyone sort of start seeing themselves reflected in the content that we're consuming, but specifically maybe asking ourselves if being seen is enough and if there are kind of limitations to being seen? I know even in the Proud family, there were dark-skinned characters that were portrayed as dark and blue, and they were sort of characterized as the mean characters, but it was really only the dark-skinned characters that were the mean ones. And the message that that kind of sends in terms of colorism and all these different conversations we're having openly now, I just wanted to see what everyone else's experiences might have been in that regard.
Yeah, Daisy, I think that feeling